Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. John 14:27. Peace I live with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. Good morning again. Hope you're all doing well. This is our third and final health focus week. We hope you have been blessed by the previous two presentations. Do we remember what we did in the first week? The first week, we were talking about medical missionary work, and last week, a lifestyle in our salvation and the importance thereof. And today we are going to learn about how to keep our minds in working order so that we can cooperate with our Maker and follow His plan. So again, let's see what modern science has to say to us. Do you know that there are two hearts in the human body? One heart in the chest, of course, and this one gets the most attention. However, another heart can be considered the frontal lobe of the brain. The brain heart, or the cranial heart, as it's also called. In Proverbs 23, verse 7, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. It is important to consider our thoughts, what we think, how we think, because that comes out in our actions, and our repeated actions produce our character. Our brains are absolutely amazing. It is a wonder, a working wonder how God put our bodies together, but our brains in particular. Fearfully and wonderfully we are made. Amen. A few facts about our brains. Okay, so the brain is continually making new connections. It is the most information-dense structure known to science, and the most complicated structure in the whole of the universe. The frontal lobes are responsible for our decision-making and choice, of judgment and inhibition, and spirituality. Damage to the frontal lobe can alter your personality and affect your morality. I do remember, I'll try to remember correctly, there was a person who was doing a presentation to a group of atheists, and of course they didn't believe in God and the creation event. And the person who was presenting asked them and said, of all the information that we know, what percentage would you think that would be? And the guy said, well, maybe 10%. So the person from the crowd responded and said, maybe with all that we know in the world, in the universe, maybe we know 10% of everything. Then the presenter said, well, in the other 90%, do you think there could be a possibility for a divine creator? So they had to think about that one. The brain is flexible and soft-wired And with proper strengthening exercises, we can remap the brain to overcome weaknesses. We can rewire our brains by choosing what we use our brains for. Does anyone know about this person? Phineas Gage? The most famous patient in neuroscience. Back in 1848, so this 25-year-old man, Phineas Gage, he was working on a construction of a railroad when an iron rod was driven through his skull. Considering he's holding the iron rod, by the way. Considering the accident occurred before the 20th century, so a lot had not yet been discovered about the mind, about the body. This was a miraculous survival, so much so that people were already preparing his coffin. He was left with one eye and damage to most of his frontal lobe. The brain area there related to decision-making, planning, organising, impulse control, problem-solving, and emotional processing. He recovered remarkably fast, physically, but people soon started noticing changes in his personality. He became impulsive, impatient, stubborn. He couldn't decide on things, not stable in his behaviour and opinions, and overall displayed socially inappropriate behaviour. The damage to the frontal lobes dramatically changed his personality and character. Before his accident, Gage was one of the best railroad workers, but despite being physically fit, he was not allowed to continue in his position. So how can we rewire the brain? Well, learning new things, not just practicing things that we already know, but we're talking about brand new things, languages, new games, or a new career. Focusing our attention, 60 to 90 minutes most days of the week, not multitasking as we all do, but 100% attention on one thing, something new and complex. And we can learn many different things this way. So sleep is very important in rewiring. The brain requires sleep to transfer new information from the temporary to the long-term wiring in the brain. So good nutrition, of course, is also very important. The food that we eat turning into blood and feeding the brain. A clear conscience, very important. Hopeful, guilt-free mind, nothing to distract or consume the brain energy. Do we have many opportunities like that these days? Not really. Optimal circulation and oxygenation of the blood. So studies show that exercise has a huge impact on the brain. Religion and health. Our religion also can impact our health and our way of thinking. So evidence from epidemiological and clinical studies and medical research supports the impact of religious affiliation and involvement on a diverse array of mental and physical health indicators and disease states, including mental health. Studies, which primarily were epidemiologic, indicate that religious factors have a salutary influence on a diverse set of outcomes, including depression, drug and alcohol use, delinquent behavior, suicide, psychological distress, and certain functional psychiatric diagnoses. A large body of research indicates that religion is beneficial to a sense of personal well-being and overall adjustment. Religious factors are associated with lower levels of behavioral risks such as alcohol use and higher levels of health-promoting behaviors like diet and exercise among adolescents. So religion does definitely impact our lives and the way that we think. Religious coping. Similar to what we just read, there is the way that we analyze and the way that we react to situations through a religious perspective. That's what religious coping means. Persons who use religious coping appear to handle their conditions more effectively than those who do not. Several studies indicate that religious coping is significant for mental and physical health outcomes for a variety of life circumstances, especially health problems and bereavement. So it can make certain situations easier when you do have a religious mindset behind you. Religious coping also appears to reduce levels of depression and anxiety in connection with bereavement and other loss events. And since mental health affects the whole system and ourselves, improving mental health improves your physical health as well. Explanations that focus on lifestyle and health behaviors suggest that religion is instrumental in shaping behaviors. So, for example, risk-taking and protective behaviors. They can be consequential for physical and mental health. This includes directly and formally prescribing specific behaviors that are health risks. Example, dietary restrictions, prohibitions against the use of alcohol and tobacco. Again, our religion does or should influence the way that we think and the choices we make, as well as encouraging behaviors that are conducive to health. Again, regular exercise. And interestingly, this study did bring Seventh-day Adventists and Mormons as well for an example. The distinctive patterns of lifestyle and health behaviors could result in lower rates of chronic and acute illnesses within identified religious groups. Additionally, religious adherents may have reduced risk for stressful life circumstances because religious teachings embody general guidelines for behavior. Moderation and conformity as examples that discourage individual deviance and encourage interpersonal harmony. In the blueprint for healing, health and healing, having 5 to 6 close friends decreases your risk of cognitive decline by 250%. So having close relationships, and that's partly what coming to church is about as well, is connecting with each other. And your risk of cognitive decline, 250% less. That's a huge amount. People with more friends were found to have better cognitive function. So let's talk a little bit about music on the human brain, because music that we listen to definitely affects us as well. Do we need to be careful what music we listen to? Yes, absolutely. Music, in some cases, is a powerful weapon affecting a person's inner world. This weapon can be used with good as well as with bad intentions. It can soothe the person's tense nerves and give peace, as we have in the case of David giving peace to King Saul. But the demonic rhythms of music can make a person fall into a trance and affect their consciousness. So the music we listen to affects our mental state as well. That is why we need to think deeply about the effect of music. It shapes morality. So from Amazing Facts, we read a multitude of research studies confirm that singing is good for humans. Singing releases endorphins, which are pain-killing hormones that cause happiness in our brains. Singing can lower stress, improve sleep, increase the function of the immune system, and increase mental alertness. Musical therapies, some still in the research phase, are being used to successfully treat patients with dementia, depression, and other medical conditions. And when we use songs to praise God, our spiritual lives benefit as well. Prayer. Is there any science to prayer? An experienced researcher and inventor in Ukraine, Dr. Michael Lazarik, decided to examine the effects of prayer on human blood. The study lasted 15 years. He grew up in a family of believers and knew of the peaceful effect prayer has on one's spirituality. But what happens on a physical level, especially with the blood? He decides to scientifically prove the therapeutic effects of prayer on health. The participants were of different genders, education levels, social status, positions and professions, and suffered from various diseases. So a very vast group of people were studied and examined. At first, he would take capillary and venous blood samples and analyze them, after which the person whose blood was taken or their relatives would pray out loud or even silently. This would take about 15 to 20 minutes. As they would pray, they would also read Psalm 50, for example. After this, they would take more blood and analyze it again. And these were their findings. The blood became different at the cellular level after prayer. The level of infection in the body decreased, especially when it comes to the acute phase of the disease. Changes occur in all indicators, inflammatory processes calm down and gradually disappear. So there is science in prayer. And we, of course, are called to pray often and without ceasing. Man is almost 80% water, and prayer changes him at the cellular level even if he recites the prayer within himself. And when he says it out loud, sound vibrations are heard that additionally affect the human body and cause changes in the blood count, reduce inflammation, and have a healing effect. Again, Mihail Lazarik has explained. So there are many influences on the body. We need to be careful what we allow to influence our minds. Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with what? With good. Exactly. We should be in constant communication with the Father, just as Jesus was, and he left an example for us. Now, if Jesus had to communicate with his Father often, to be in touch with him often, how much more so do we? Or how much more so should we? We need to pray. It is very important. Pray for each other. Pray for those who are sick, those who are suffering from various illnesses and diseases, because your prayers have an effect on them, whether you know it or not. We need to stay focused on the battle that is before us, because we know time is very short.
Okay, so let's continue. Depression and anxiety. The number of people developing depression these days has definitely increased since 1915. The disease seems to be striking at an earlier age, at a time in Earth's history when we're doing more fun things than ever before. The number of people taking antidepressants as well has also increased. Major depression is the second most common mental health illness in the United States. And the disorder is also costing around $70 billion a year in treatment, disability, and lost productivity as a result. And this information and more information can be found in Dr. Neil Nedley's book, Depression, The Way Out. There are physiological or physical reasons for depression as well as psychological. So the physiological or physical reasons are the body's reaction to certain medications, low blood sugar levels, dietary habits, disruptions in metabolism, and sleep deprivation. Psychological reasons for depression can be divorce, loss of a relative, deaths, financial difficulties, memories from the past. Again, the memories from the past is a little bit harder to deal with, but the first four can also be addressed as situations change. There is also mild and major depression, both of them needing serious attention, because mild depression can evolve into major depression, and major depression can have additional health effects and be accompanied with deadly diseases like certain cancers, since depression lowers our immune system's power to attack cancer cells. And again, this is from Dr. Neil Nedley's book, Depression, The Way Out. We read in Mind, Character and Personality, page 59. Sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10 of the diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here. It sounds a bit extreme. 90% of the diseases are in the mind or come from the mind. But there is a book, it's called Can Attitude Affect Your Health, written by Danny Vieira, who is the director of Bella Vita Lifestyle Center, and he has found this statement to be very accurate, working in the lifestyle center and seeing people that come to them with various diseases. Research also shows that immunity is connected with certain emotions and is responsible. Our emotions are responsible for certain diseases. Research has also found that only 6 minutes of negative emotions impact our immunity for the next 21 hours. So anytime we decide to get angry or upset with someone, we are giving that time to them. So we need to decide if it's worth it or not. And again, negative emotions can affect specific organs. For example, anger can affect the liver. Bitterness can affect the gallbladder. Grief and sadness can affect heart and lungs. Vulnerability, feelings of abandonment, can affect the small intestine. Inflexibility or defensiveness can affect the large intestine. Low self-esteem, feelings of rejection will affect spleen or pancreas. Fear and terror can affect the kidneys. Irritation, timidity will affect the gallbladder, and confusion can affect thyroid or adrenals. And the Bible, of course, has very good instructions on psychological issues as well as physical issues, as we know. We read in Proverbs 17, verse 22, a merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken heart dries the bones. Who experiences bone pain or back pain when they are stressed or angry? I definitely do. When I'm stressed, definitely I can say that happens to me. Good things to remember about depression, anxiety is that if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. And where does God live? He lives in the present. And if we are not living in the present, we can't be connected with God. And we read in Matthew 6, verse 34, take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Which disorder is this talking about? This is about anxiety. And in Isaiah 43, verse 18, we read, remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. And which disorder would this verse be talking about? This one is about depression. It is estimated that 90% of our fears don't end up coming true. And as Mark Twain once said, I've been through a lot and some of it actually happened. Sometimes the reason for depression as well, according to sufferers, is suppressed anger and hostility that have been pushed to our subconsciousness. We should not be embarrassed about our mental health struggles and reach out for help, just as we would in the case of physical sickness. As they say, a problem defined is a problem half solved. So once we've identified the problem, we can find the solutions as well. After all, we've learned that mental health is strongly connected to our physical health. And as long as our mental health is suffering, certain physical issues will not be fixed. So what does water have to do with our mental health? We've discussed that about 70% or 80% of our body is water. Infants, 84%, which is higher. Our brain is made up of 80% water, and thirst is the last signal that the body sends. The brain's needs for water are not satisfied until the body has met all the needs of the other vital organs. So we can't go by the feeling of thirst, because a lot of the times, by the time we're thirsty, it's too late. Also, if you are not in the habit of drinking water already, you might not recognize the signs and symptoms, and you might actually not have the feeling of thirst. So this is different, how much water we drink as a female and as a male. For females, it's 2.7 liters of water pretty much, and for males, it's 3 liters and more, depending on the weather conditions and body weight. Signs of dehydration can be mood swings, irritability, loss of mental clarity, headache, ringing in the ears, depression, fatigue, decrease in immune function, etc. And sometimes other people are a better judge of whether we are dehydrated. Like my husband sometimes will tell me, how much water did you drink? If he sees that I'm maybe irritable. Water can also improve memory, and it's the cheapest therapy for different conditions. Water can also be used as an antidepressant in the form of cold showers, and my friend actually told me she does do this and it helps her a lot. Washing the face with cold water, swimming in the cool water, hot and cold or contrast showers. I watched a documentary one time where the doctor was helping the patient to overcome depression by getting her to swim 15 to 20 minutes in the lake. But this is not advised to do on your own without the doctor's supervision, because you can have either diagnosed or undiagnosed heart conditions, and cold water affects the muscles as well. So you definitely want to make sure you have mastered the correct breathing techniques, and you've also talked with your doctor to see if you can swim in the cold water or not. And sleep and rest for mental health. Previous research has established that sleep problems are associated with impaired mental health in childhood and beyond. Problems associated with poor sleep habits include inattention or hyperactivity and physical aggression, emotional issues and anxiety, thought problems for children especially, anxiety or depressive disorder, rule-breaking behaviors and physical aggression, reduced mood, obsessive-compulsive behaviors, and psychological distress. Not enough sleep can make you have negative thoughts and see life in a different light. And a very good example of this is the new mothers. When we go through these sleepless nights for days and months on end, we know that our perception of reality and life definitely changes, but thankfully it doesn't last that long. And social media use needs special attention. Alongside with technology activities like TV viewing, video gaming, and computer and smartphone use is generally associated with poorer sleep outcomes, particularly shorter sleep duration, and also delayed bedtimes and poorer sleep quality. As we know, social media can be addictive as well. So make sure 2 hours before sleeping, we don't have access to any media devices, especially the handheld devices, which are closer to our face. The devices and their blue light interfere with our melatonin production, plus the screen light potentially can delay our circadian rhythm and affect our sleep, of course. Too much sleep as well as too little sleep can increase our risk of dementia. So regularity in bedtime can improve our memory. In Proverbs 6:9-11, we read, "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man." And during good sleep is when the plaques are removed from our brain. Best times to sleep is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. So 8 hours sleep, non-negotiable. And it's good to also focus on one of the most beautiful stories and the a beautiful mental health care story, I guess, that we can focus on today, and that is Elijah's mental health struggle and how God addressed it. So we will remember in 1 Kings chapters 18 and 19 about Elijah's experience with Baal's prophets at Mount Carmel, and how God demonstrated his incredible power there. And both Elijah and the people watching would have been a witness of that. But after the encounter, as we remember, Jezebel learns of Baal's prophets being killed by Elijah, and she sends a message to him saying he's going to kill him. And what does he do? He runs to the wilderness and asks to die. I think he was depressed, and he probably was underslept, we can assume. Maybe he also was malnourished, we don't know. But he voices his concerns and says, they have killed all your prophets, God, and now they're after me. Now they're going to kill me as well. And he did not want to die in their hand, I guess. So what does God do? He lets Elijah to talk it out. And every time I go over this story, it makes me emotional, because it's just perfect what a person needs going through depression or mental breakdown. So God lets him talk it out, and then God lets him sleep. We read in 1 Kings 19, verse 5, "And as he lay down and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him." Note the physical touch as well. "And said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, behold, there was a cake baken on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God." Have you ever been depressed? What does it feel like when someone, especially again, new mothers, because this is a recent experience for me, especially when new mothers are told, go to your room and have a sleep. And when they come, wake you up, especially with the physical touch, they wake you up and you realize they've made you hot food and water. And they actually say, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. It's going to get better. They don't criticize you. They actually acknowledge how difficult it must be for you. Especially when it's food that you haven't made yourself, I think it can be even better. So after this, God asked him, What doest thou here, Elijah? And then he revealed himself in the most beautiful way again. "And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice." That's where the Lord was. And God tells him of his plans and gives him instructions. It's a beautiful story and a great example of how we can follow these steps as well when a loved one, a family or friend is going through a difficult time. And sometimes we can tell they are not speaking out of a sound mind, and it can feel like a personal attack as well. And it's important to remember it's not, and to help them with this. So steps we see followed, and the steps we can follow as well, was God allowed him to talk it out, not just once. God allowed him to sleep. Physical touch comforts, we learn. Food and drink are necessary for recovery, and God acknowledged the legitimacy of his struggles. So this was God's mental health care plan that we can follow. Okay, so Diane did touch on the exercise a little bit. Studies have shown that moderate exercise has a positive impact on mental health. Specifically, there is evidence that exercise interventions are effective in improving symptoms of depression, and that adding moderate exercise to behavioral therapy is also effective for depression. There is also evidence that exercise provides temporary relief from a variety of stresses for people. So this is not about running a marathon or the really heavy and strenuous exercises that can actually have the adverse effect on health, and also increases the feelings of self-efficacy. And I definitely know that to be true, because when I first went to uni, the change in the town and the city made me depressed. And I went from depressed to taking only 1 or 2 swimming lessons, and the world just basically changed. It went from black and white to bright. So vitamin D, also called the sunshine vitamin, the same study suggests that exposure to sunlight, exposure to and use of green spaces, and physical activity each positively affected mental health. And the use of green space was also associated with exposure to sunlight and promotion of physical activity. This article was published last year, as we can see, but of course we had this information over 100 years ago. Morning sunlight helps depression. Afternoon sunlight increases vitamin D. And as all the gifts that God has given us, we know that we need to use this one wisely as well, not to the point of sunburn. Exercise can be more effective than that diet control in preventing memory deficits. Those who are more active can improve their brain function by 32 to 39%. Best time to exercise is before breakfast, and the best type of exercise is walking, which improves memory and brain function. Improved ventilation with outdoor air improves mental performance. Physical exercise in a natural outdoor environment lowers your risk of Alzheimer's by its positive effects on blood pressure and inflammation. If you are new to walking, start out slowly, increase to half an hour, and then increase from there as well. It also has anti-inflammatory effect on the body. So mental exercises combined with mental exercises, physical exercises improve mental performance more compared to physical exercise alone. So we need to do things that keep our brains active, which is keep your own accounts, form your own opinions. So researching, make long-term plans, learn new skills and improve old ones, take a new hobby. Learning stimulates the growth of brain networks which bypass damaged areas of the brain. Bible study is the best mind builder. Learning scripture by heart, comparing one verse to another is a really great mind builder. It's the same principle with any muscle. It's a use it or lose it principle. And according to Dr. Clark, an idle mind is a brain in decline. Okay, so let's just quickly also address the diet side of things when it comes to mental health. Nutritional concerns are usually one of the several causes that act together to bring about mental illness. But if this factor is not addressed, it leaves a gap in the mental health treatment. Important nutrients for depression are tryptophan, out of which the brain makes serotonin, and serotonin is a neurotransmitter. Black walnut, almonds, sesame seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds, but especially ground flax seeds and tofu are rich in tryptophan. Omega-3 fats, cold water ocean fish, seaweed, flax seeds, walnuts, green soybeans, spinach, sesame, seeds, etc. But the ones that are in bold, these are the best ones. And one thing to remember about the omega-3 is the original source. The original sources of omega-3 are plant sources. That's where the fish get their omega-3 as well. And when we eat the fish, we basically get it secondhand, plus the contamination that the fish are exposed to, and the heavy metals that are stored in their fatty tissue, which make it actually, according to Dr. Neil Nedley, who's a gastroenterologist specializing in mental health, fish is the most toxic food you can consume because of how the fish concentrate the heavy metals in their fatty tissues. So folate, chickpeas and lentils are my favorite to go with. B12, when it comes to B12, it's a hormone that is actually helps to, the body uses bacteria to produce it. So supplementation is the most sure way to go. And first we need to find out whether we are deficient in it or not, though. So just a couple of quick tips for keeping your mind sharp. We need to avoid overeating. We discussed this last time as well. It decreases brain's blood flow and oxygen while increasing its inflammation. Caloric restriction and intermittent fasting have been shown to significantly reduce your risk of Alzheimer's, increasing the key antioxidant defense enzymes for the brain to stay young. And again, the temperance issue is here. Maintaining regular meal schedule of 2 or 3 meals a day with no snacking in between. And meat is hazardous to long-term mental abilities due to the negative impact on brain inflammation. Sugar is also hazardous for brain longevity. It clogs the system and decreases your memory function. Add milk to sugar and it gets even worse. So the dairy desserts cause even more rapid cognitive decline. Tobacco and alcohol use, of course, and minimize or eliminate refined foods, so white salt, sugar, white pastas, white rice, all of that. Avoid visible fats. So if you can see it, we probably should avoid it or use in moderation. Oils, meat, lard, etc. Believe it or not, the brain health is closely connected with colon health. Microbes in your digestive tract affect the health of your brain through molecules that release into your blood circulation. The diet you choose affects the bacteria that can survive in your gut. The brain suffers when the wrong diet favors the harmful bacteria. And again, as Ellen White has said as well, brain and stomach are in sympathy. So a variety of nutrient-dense fresh fruits and vegetables is associated with cognitive reduced risk of cognitive impairment and dementia. Higher consumption of whole grains because of their antioxidant activity and minerals. Whole legumes, beans decrease cognitive decline. So variety is more important than quantity, and eating whole, ripe plant foods every meal is important, including half to 1 cup of beans for breakfast every day can also help with this. Raw nut consumption can improve cognitive performance and delay cognitive decline in old age. Walnuts seem to be best in terms of this. So we read in Ministry of Healing, page 127, pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. And as I was compiling the presentation, I saw that science backs this up as well. And wherever I look, I see the different points that the Spirit of Prophecy has mentioned about 150 years ago. So we need to use all the blessings we are given by God wisely. We know that too much of anything can be harmful, using the good things in moderation and avoiding the bad things. In closing, I would like to quote 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 23. And the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray, God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. So again, we want to thank you for being here and for your attention. I just want to remind you as well that 22nd of October is when the Nedley Depression and Anxiety program starts. So if you are thinking of registering again about 3 to 4 days before, still we will be registering. So let us know. And also, if you know anyone that would benefit from it, let them know as well. So we would like to ask you to implement these lifestyle choices, maybe one of them each week. And we would like to hear back from you. Let us know how it went and the benefits that you experienced. So thank you very much, and God bless you.